The federal courtroom fell into stunned silence as Sylvester Stallone took the stand during the trial of Sean "Diddy" Combs. The atmosphere was electric, a high-profile trial already burdened with serious allegations, now charged with an unexpected twist. Stallone, the iconic figure known for his tough, gritty roles, was about to deliver testimony that could reshape everything. Under oath, Stallone's gravelly voice filled the courtroom, calm but resolute. "I'm here to tell the truth, no matter who it implicates." Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Enyuang approached him with a composed yet determined demeanor. Her eyes locked on Stallone as she began the questioning, probing into the nature of Stallone's connection with Combs. "We understand you and Mr. Combs have crossed paths," Enyuang said. "Could you describe your relationship?" Stallone nodded slightly, his expression unreadable. "We've run into each other at industry events. Parties, premieres, the usual. Never really close, never friends." The courtroom held its breath as Enyuang leaned in. "Have you ever witnessed or been involved in any incidents that relate to the charges against Mr. Combs?" A flicker of hesitation passed across Stallone's face before he spoke. "There was one time. It wasn't something I wanted to get involved in, but what I saw couldn't be ignored." He went on to describe an incident that unfolded years ago, backstage at a concert venue. The scene was chaotic, loud music, flashing lights, a crowd of entertainers and staff moving about. Stallone, though not part of the usual crowd, found himself in the middle of a confrontation that would later be a piece of the prosecution's puzzle. "There was tension, heated words exchanged," Stallone recounted. "People I knew only by reputation were there. Some of the biggest names you can imagine in this industry." He named a few, carefully, deliberately signaling a web of connections far beyond the immediate case. The courtroom murmured, but the judge quickly called for order. Enyuang pressed on. "What exactly did you see during this confrontation?" Stallone's voice was steady, but his eyes flickered with the weight of the memory. It was clear there was more than just a personal dispute. There was business, money, power, things that go beyond what you see in the headlines. The defense attorney rose sharply, challenging Stallone's credibility, painting him as an outsider with no real stake in the matter. But Stallone stood firm, repeating, "I'm here to tell the truth." The trial room crackled with tension. Stallone's unexpected testimony had shifted the ground beneath everyone's feet. The prosecution gained a new edge, the defense was on alert, and the public watched with rapt attention. Outside the courtroom, reporters scrambled to capture every word. Social media exploded, theories and speculation swirling. What did Stallone know? How deep did this web go? And more importantly, what would be the fallout for those implicated? As the questioning continued, it became clear that Stallone's words were not just a side note, they were a potential turning point in a trial that had already captivated a nation. Sylvester Stallone took a deep breath as he continued his testimony, the courtroom hanging on his every word. The silence was almost suffocating. Every eye was fixed on him, every ear tuned to his gravelly voice. "Back in 2010, Stallone began, there was a party in Los Angeles, a big one. Hosted by Sean Combs himself. You know the kind, celebrities everywhere, flashing cameras, champagne flowing, and an electric energy that fills the room." He paused, his gaze steady but heavy with recollection. "It was one of those high-profile events where the rich and powerful come together. But beneath all the glitz, I saw something dark." Stallone's voice lowered slightly, carrying the weight of what he was about to reveal. "At that party, I witnessed Combs threatening a young woman." The courtroom leaned in, breath caught. He told her, and I quote, "You'll do what I say, or you're done in this town. I made you, and I can break you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Stallone's eyes scanned the room as he described the scene. The woman protested. She was visibly upset, scared, even. "I didn't know her name at the time. Honestly, I just thought it was some heated argument, maybe the kind of tension that comes with fame and the entertainment business." He admitted, his voice tinged with regret, "Back then, I dismissed it. I told myself it was nothing more than the pressures of the industry." But now, months into the trial, as Stallone listened to other testimonies, the voices of Cassie Ventura, Wendy Williams, and others, a pattern emerged. A disturbing pattern. He looked down briefly, collecting himself before meeting the eyes of the jury. "Now I realize," he said quietly, "it wasn't just tension. It was part of something much bigger, a pattern of control, intimidation, and fear." Stallone's confession was raw and honest. "I should have spoken up. I see that now. I was silent when I shouldn't have been. And that silence, it helped keep it going." Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Enyuang nodded, then gently asked, "Did you ever confront Mr. Combs about this incident or share your concerns with anyone else at the time?" Stallone shook his head. "No. I didn't. I was intimidated myself, and frankly, I didn't want to get involved in something I didn't fully understand." The courtroom was quiet again, the gravity of his words settling over everyone like a shadow. Enyuang pressed on, "And how do you feel now, being here, telling the truth in this courtroom?" Stallone's expression hardened with resolve. "I feel it's my responsibility to speak out now. If my silence allowed someone else to be hurt, I won't be silent anymore." The defense attorney stood abruptly, trying to challenge Stallone's credibility, accusing him of being a bystander with no direct evidence. But Stallone remained unmoved. He had stepped forward not as a witness to seek fame or drama, but because, as he put it, the truth needs to be told. As he took his seat, the courtroom buzzed with a mixture of shock and contemplation. The testimony had peeled back another layer of the case, exposing a personal, human side to the allegations, one that spoke of power abused and lives impacted. Outside, reporters scrambled to capture the revelation. Social media was ablaze with reactions, some outraged, others supportive. Everyone wanted to know, what would Stallone's testimony mean for the future of the trial? For Combs, and for the countless others who might have suffered in silence. The trial was far from over, but one thing was clear: silence was breaking, and with it, the possibility of justice. Sylvester Stallone took a steadying breath as the courtroom's silence deepened. The weight of his next words was unmistakable. "Sean Combs," Stallone said firmly, "didn't act alone." A subtle murmur rippled through the room. The trial, already high-profile, was about to expand in scope. There were others who enabled this, Stallone continued. One of them was Clive Davis. The courtroom stirred whispers, exchanged glances. Clive Davis, a legendary figure in the music industry, now named as a key player in a dark web of power and manipulation. Stallone's voice dropped, his tone grim. "I saw how Davis and Combs interacted at parties. On the surface, it looked like mentorship, the kind of relationship where an older, experienced figure guides a rising star." He paused, letting the jury and everyone present grasp the significance. But it felt different. It felt like Davis was teaching Combs how to control people. Not just with charm or money, but through power, drugs, and fear. The courtroom's atmosphere grew heavier. Stallone described overhearing conversations at exclusive events, the kind of off-the-record remarks that paint a chilling picture. "I heard Davis make unsettling comments to young artists, comments that didn't just intimidate but manipulated," Stallone said. "And I learned from others in the industry that Davis used substances and influence as tools. He controlled talent by keeping them dependent, fragile." Stallone's eyes darkened with the memory. People whispered about his methods. How he'd isolate artists, how he'd push them into destructive cycles, all under the guise of helping them. Then, a somber note entered his voice. "There's been rumors, really, that Davis's approach contributed to Whitney Houston's decline." The courtroom gasped softly. Whitney Houston, an icon whose tragic struggles were well known, now linked to a web of manipulation and abuse through Davis's name. "I don't claim to know everything," Stallone said carefully. "But the stories I heard, the patterns I saw, they point to a system that uses fear and control to maintain power." Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Enyuang nodded, pressing forward. "Did you ever witness Davis directly participating in any illegal or unethical acts?" Stallone's jaw tightened. "Not directly. But the influence was undeniable. What happens behind closed doors, it's different. The power dynamics, the fear, it's enough to keep people silent." The defense team rose, attempting to dismiss Stallone's testimony as hearsay, arguing that his observations were circumstantial and motivated by misunderstanding. But Stallone was unwavering. "This isn't just speculation. It's the truth as I've seen it. And it's part of a larger problem in this industry." The courtroom was silent again, the magnitude of the allegation settling in. Outside, the news spread like wildfire. The trial was no longer just about Combs. It had expanded into the very heart of the music industry's most influential figures. Questions swirled. How deep did this web go? What secrets were still buried? And who else might be implicated? For the jury, Stallone's testimony painted a troubling picture of a system built on fear and control, where powerful men used their influence not just to create stars, but to dominate and silence. As Stallone returned to his seat, the courtroom remained charged, a reminder that in the world of fame and fortune, the line between mentorship and manipulation can be dangerously thin. Sylvester Stallone settled back into the witness stand, the weight of his testimony pressing down on him with every word. The courtroom was silent, every ear straining to catch what he had to say next. He began recounting an encounter from 2012, a moment that left a lasting impression on him. "I remember a young Justin Bieber," Stallone said, voice steady but somber. "He was just starting to break into the industry, raw talent, full of potential." The memory seemed vivid in Stallone's mind. At that time, Sean Combs pulled him aside and told him, "Stick with me and Clive. We'll show you how it's done." The courtroom absorbed the phrase, its tone ringing with unsettling familiarity. It wasn't just a friendly offer. It echoed the kind of threats I'd heard back in 2010, a message that control came with conditions, that loyalty was demanded, and refusal meant consequences. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Enyuang's eyes sharpened as she followed up. Were there others in the industry who were aware of this behavior? Stallone took a moment, then spoke carefully. "Yes. One person I can name is Beyoncé." A collective intake of breath swept through the courtroom. Beyoncé, a global icon, now connected to this troubling narrative. "I saw her at a party in 2003, Stallone explained. "The kind of party where these things happened. People getting away with things behind closed doors." He paused to clarify. "I didn't see her involved in any wrongdoing. She was not part of the behavior itself." But then his tone shifted, heavy with disappointment. "What struck me was that she saw what I saw and said nothing." The implication hung in the air, thick with unspoken questions. Stallone's testimony was a stark reminder of the silence that often surrounds abuse and manipulation in the entertainment world. Why didn't she speak up? Someone could almost hear the unasked question echo through the courtroom. Stallone didn't speculate. Instead, he focused on the harsh reality of power dynamics and fear. When you're in that world, saying nothing is sometimes the only way to survive. The defense team immediately moved to challenge Stallone's credibility and the weight of his accusations, but the damage was done. The image of a young star like Bieber being subtly corralled under Combs and Davis's influence, and of a figure as powerful as Beyoncé witnessing but remaining silent, raised the stakes to an entirely new level. Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy intensified. Fans and critics alike debated the implications of Stallone's testimony. Could Beyoncé's silence be seen as complicity? Was Bieber's career shaped under the shadow of coercion? Inside, the jury was left to wrestle with the uncomfortable truth that fame and fortune often come wrapped in complex, sometimes troubling, layers of power and control. As Stallone concluded his testimony on this point, the courtroom remained heavy with tension, a stark spotlight cast on an industry where the price of success sometimes exacts a hidden, painful toll. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Enyuang leaned in, her voice calm but insistent. "Mr. Stallone, why do these figures, Clive Davis, Beyoncé, matter to this case?" Sylvester Stallone met her gaze steadily, his voice low but resolute. "Because Sean Combs didn't act alone. He was part of a system. A system built by people like Clive Davis, people who wield power behind the scenes. And others, like Beyoncé, who protected that system through their silence." The courtroom shifted in the heavy silence. Stallone's words carried weight. He wasn't just accusing Combs, he was exposing an entire network of influence and complicity. But then the defense attorney, Reynolds, rose sharply, his tone pointed. "Objection, Your Honor. There is no direct evidence connecting Mr. Davis or Ms. Beyoncé to any criminal activity. This is speculation. Judge Carter adjusted his glasses, considering the objection carefully. After a brief pause, he responded firmly, "The testimony is allowed based on Mr. Stallone's first-hand observations and experiences. The jury will decide its weight." Reynolds wasted no time, turning his cross-examination on Stallone's credibility. "Mr. Stallone, you admit you have not witnessed Mr. Davis or Ms. Beyoncé committing any crimes, correct?" Stallone's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice remained unwavering. "That's correct. I have not seen them break the law directly. So why should we believe your claims?" Reynolds pressed. "You're relying on atmosphere, rumors, and hearsay." Stallone shook his head, his expression hardened. "I'm speaking about culture. I've seen how this industry works, how power is used, how people protect one another, and how silence becomes a shield." He looked toward the jury, his words cutting through the courtroom's tension. "You don't have to see every crime to know the system enabling it is real." With that, Stallone stepped down from the stand, the weight of his testimony lingering in the air like a storm about to break. Immediately, reporters surged forward, their phones and cameras capturing every detail. Headlines began to form even before the courtroom doors closed. One journalist murmured into a microphone, "This is a bombshell that could shake the entire entertainment industry." As the day ended, the courtroom emptied, but the ripples of Stallone's words spread far and wide. Conversations ignited on social media, debates flared about accountability and power in Hollywood. For the trial, Stallone's testimony marked a turning point, transforming it from a case about one man into an indictment of a culture. And outside, beneath the glare of the spotlight, the industry braced itself. The shockwaves were only beginning.